Justice, where are you? Should I ask the magic 8 ball?
How did you get that,
It's
Michael
back
Bryan?
home. It's home.
Oh, how does it feel? I know you're very sensitive. I know,
It
Michael Bryan.
feels
You're
it
very
feels
sensitive about
right.
your things. By the way,
I,
that's Michael Bryan. I'm Linda Kenny Bodden. We're Justice Serve
yes.
TV. Are you looking for a drone in there?
My drone has been retired for the present time anyway.
All right,
It
all
had a
right.
nice tour of all kinds of facilities and things, but
Well,
don't worry
welcome to
about the drones.
everybody.
It's no big
Yeah, welcome to
deal.
everybody's joining us. Everyone is joining us because we have a pretty packed show. But before we get to our star guests, we have some things going on in the world we just want to mention here. That is, well, let's see, what was it? It was such a packed day. Let's see, there was a little case, YSL,
Mm,
Yak Gotti, Shannon
mm,
Stillwell. What
mm.
happened there, Michael Bryan? Because you were tweeting about it, and you and I got into it about because you were calling the
Yeah.
judge
Well,
certain things. But we're not going to go there.
in terms of the defendants, it was a 1-for-2 day, in that Shannon Stillwell has now gotten out of Rice Street hell, and so good for him. That all worked out for him. The one that didn't work out so well, that got me so fired up, was the Diamante Kendrick Yak Gotti decision. That no, he's not going to get out. Why is that? And why did I use a word that you were not happy about? And I should have used the word wimp instead. But I was so upset that this judge did not have the guts to. Well, here's how I would have handled it. First of all, here's
Or
the
the
setting.
sneakers, as I would say.
DA Rao is there, and he's making the arguments. And the arguments, of course, are no bond for Diamante Kendrick. This was purely a bond hearing. That's all it was. And he
Because there's
starts
a
bringing.
warrant that they said that just all of a sudden appeared out of miraculously after 2 years.
Funny how that would happen. Like, this isn't on calendar for a while. So that was part one of what really pissed me off, and why the judge handled it poorly. If I'm the judge, here's my deal. Mr. Rao, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this case. We're going to move it to the bottom of the calendar for second call. In the meantime, you're going to get with Caleb Bumpus. His attorney is here. Mr. Kendrick is here. Find this mystery warrant and get that handled so we can address it here today. And as for those 13 other events that you mentioned that took place or may not have taken place in the jail, those aren't properly before me today, Mr. Rao. If sometime down the road you happen to indict on one of those, we'll revisit that. But don't use that today to hang up Mr. Kendrick if, in fact, he is going to qualify for bond. Do we understand one another? Sit down. Get one of your minions to work on that warrant so it gets properly handled. And then when we get to you again on the bottom of the calendar, we'll bring this back up, and I will make a decision today on whether or not Mr. Kendrick gets bond. That's how it should have been.
Very good, Judge Michel Briant. Very, very good. Because obviously we'll be practicing in Georgia in the near future because the judges will be out to get you. But that's the way it should have been handled. So the guy who gets not guilty, the guy who has the sneakers to take it to trial, who tries a case, has been sitting in Rice Street, who has got stabbed in the head 2 weeks ago, he is still there and he has a not guilty. Welcome to an old novel called The Trial of Franz Kafka. If you don't know what it is, just Google it.
Yes, Kafkaesque. Yes.
And then the second thing that happened really quickly, we'll tell you that Luigi Mangione, the killer of the United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, there was a big press conference announced today by DA Bragg here in New York City. And it wasn't to say that he's agreed to extradition. He's going to be moved to one of the prisons upstate in the Catskills where he could be protected. It was to say they indicted him. Well, big puppies, because we know that was coming. That was easy. So that was the second.
You had a great idea, though. You had a great idea about how they could maneuver maybe to get him back sooner. What would the trade-off be?
Well, the trade-off is they agree not to bring him back to Rikers, because if I'm his attorney, that's what I want. I don't want him in Rikers. He can't be protected. It's not a great place to be. It's a horrible prison next to Rice Street. It's the second worst prison in the United States, they say. All right, not prison. It's a jail. I should say jail, because prisons are different. Put him into one of the upstate facilities in Orange County, in Sullivan County, in the Catskills. Usually Orange County is really where they are. They're not quite in my county yet, okay? Where he can be protected, or one of the facilities that deals with emotional distress, because he's going to have a psychiatric defense, and agree to that and get an agreement for extradition to save the taxpayers of both Pennsylvania and New York State money, okay? Oh, novel idea.
Yeah, it's way too reasonable. That I will not allow it. It's way too reasonable. So hopefully his representatives on both sides will maybe think about that, because I think it's a perfect trade-off, because the last thing this guy wants to do is be in Rikers. And Rikers doesn't want him. he's going to
No.
be a pain in the ass. He's going to be a major security risk. So yeah, why not just come to some resolution and then let it happen before the end of the month, which is now when it's scheduled to take place. So,
Yeah.
okay, got those little
Was there a
housekeeping
third thing? Was there a
away.
third thing? We had Yak, we had
Yeah, what's your
Stillwell,
third thing?
we had
I don't
Luigi
know.
happening today.
I think that was
That's
it.
enough.
Wasn't that it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's
I
one
think
more, but that's okay.
okay. Well, if you
We're
think
gonna
about it,
we'll be talking
shout
more
it
about
out.
those. We'll be talking more about those during the week. We're going to have a whole show on Luigi. We're going to do probably going into Christmas week a whole update once we know what's happening with Yak and we will have a throwback Thursday, and we're also going to have a comment show at the end of this week. But right now we have a very special guest, right?
Oh boy, most folks can remember the case. It got dubbed by most the treehouse murder case because, and then for folks who didn't realize what there was a murder in a treehouse. No, it was a business, as it were, a building in Key West, and there was unfortunately somebody killed and somebody injured. She later died, not necessarily as a result of those injuries. And one of the defendants, there were 3 total. Two of them, one was convicted, one took a deal, and the third guy, Mr. Franklin Ty Tucker, he said, "I don't want your deal." They offered him a deal, time served, and he said, "No, I didn't do anything. I'm going to represent myself." So when we hear that, of course, as attorneys, we think, "Oh boy, this may not go so well," and yet it did. In fact, before I'm doing this out of order. I'm audibleizing. Before we bring on Mr. Franklin Ty Tucker. Let me see if I can find for you here just a bit of his work. This is in Key West, and he is representing himself in a murder trial. Here's just a touch of his.
Now the opportunity for the defendant to make closing argument. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. First, let me apologize to start off here. As you can see, I'm noticeably irritated, angry, upset. And there's a good reason why. Mr. Mansfield up here corroborated, pounded that into your heads, right? Again, all Travis corroborated was his own story. That's it. He literally, all those details that he just handed out to you, the drawing the map, the I said this, I did that, all this stuff. Yeah, somebody was there who did the crime could actually tell you all those things. Makes sense. And he's saying that's the only thing that makes sense is that Travis is actually, believable. Okay, well, when I put myself on the stand yesterday, Mr. Mansfield didn't impeach my testimony once. Not once. Did he say, prove that I lied anywhere in there? Then he goes ahead and he corroborates my testimony by saying, "Oh, you told the investigators the same thing 6 years ago." Yes, I did. And why I'm upset? 6 years ago. And after 6 years, the state comes up here with Travis said. That's why I'm here, right? That's what it boils down to. And, I got to say, yes, I am upset. I'm literally sick to my stomach right now.
Objection, Judge, to the improper argument.
Well, I will overrule the objection. If you're sick and need to take a break, sir, I'll certainly give you an opportunity.
I meant I'm sick, because I had to sit there and listen to this.
Okay, so just a little feel for what was happening there in the life at the time of Franklin Ty Tucker. Things are a little better now, that's for sure. There he is. Welcome. How was that?
That was a great memory you pulled up there.
Yeah. I think in your honor, we should all take our glasses and put them up on our heads.
Oh yeah, my favorite, right? But the thing is, oh man, watching that clip, and I've seen a few of them now from back at the trial, and oh man, what a time period that was.
Let's see, when was that? Remind me when that happened, last summer?
That was in January. The trial actually ended January 25th, 2024.
Wow.
And it's been a hell of a ride since. Obviously I stayed pro se. They did throw me back in jail. They threw me back in jail, made me fight from there. Now, while I did turn down the plea deal initially, the first time when they offered it before I went to trial, you know, I had to reassess that when I went ahead and cut the deal this time. You know, this time was a little bit different. I had already been to trial, and most people, you know, got a idea of whether or not I was guilty or innocent. You know, what they thought from that first trial. Now, granted, and I'm sure we'll get into this later with some of the stuff we've talked about. I definitely had a better defense coming back for the second one. I fully planned on kicking their behinds, and my ego wanted to, you know, do it with my hands tied behind my back from jail and kick their behinds. My ego definitely wanted to do that. I'm not going to say I didn't. But I actually had to put my ego in check and do what I thought was strategically important. You know, I looked at this, the plea deal. And you know, I know you haven't announced what the deal is, but the thing is I looked at this as a lateral move in order to move forward. Is pretty much what I looked at, because I mean, I had to look at it this way. I'm in there in jail fighting the absolute
For murder.
hardest war.
For murder.
Huh?
You were
For
charged.
murder.
Let's
Right.
remind
And not only
everybody.
that, I
You
mean-
were charged with murder, murder.
Right. And I was facing a life sentence, plus, man, I don't know how many years at that point. I know my original charges was 10 felonies, including homicide. And I was looking at a life sentence plus 370 years. So that's what I was looking at, you know, and they dropped it down to 4 charges when we went to trial. So they dropped off 6 of the charges when we went to trial. And then, you know, they've dropped the rest of them except for the one that I pled no contest to. Now, that was the thing is, okay, my understanding of no contest was a little skewed back then. You know, like most people, a lot of people have a tendency to equate no contest as to pleading guilty, and it's not the same thing,
Nope.
not legally. And it was
And let
an
me stop you,
important
Todd.
distinction.
Let me stop you there right now, because we just
Yeah.
had that whole issue with Shannon Stillwell today, pled no contest on some charges to get out of jail in the YSL case, and I see it all over on X, former Twitter. People say, "Well, he pled guilty." No, he did not plead guilty. All no contest is, and actually, it's an easy way to let a prosecutor off when they kind of like screwed up a case and really, you know.
Oh yeah.
But they've got you in jail, and you know your sneakers are kind of being squeezed, so to speak. It all says is that you agree that if they take this to trial, that the prosecution could get a conviction on the evidence that they present. That's all no contest is.
Well, not quite. Even that. I mean, because they could possibly do it. That's true, right?
Right, possibly.
But even then,
right.
it's really just as simple as, okay, I don't want to fight this. I'm not trying to fight this anymore. It's not worth it to me, right? Whether it's time, money, whatever you want to talk about, it's not worth it. But the more important part, and this is what really made me want to go with the deal, is without pleading guilty and without them ever proving me guilty, that means I can now take it into civil court, because it's not even admissible. The conviction's not even admissible in civil court in Florida. So now I can go ahead and I can sue the living shit out of them. And
so why don't we tell everybody what the deal is? Why don't we tell everybody
let's
what the
talk
deal
about
is?
the deal.
No problem.
Let's back up. Michael, Brian, you want to do it? Or you want Ty to do it?
Yeah, you want to go ahead, man?
No, you go ahead. Tell us what the deal that you ultimately decided
the deal
to
was
take
pretty
was.
simple. I actually, during the negotiations, they came and they wanted to cut a deal, right? And this is, again, you're talking about pro se defendant who's in jail, handwriting motions, you know, and et cetera, et cetera. They come and they want to cut a deal. And I told them point blank, I was like, look, if you can come at me with something where I'm not pleading guilty to anything and I don't do a single day's worth of punishment, not another day in jail, not probation, none of it. If you can do that, then come back and talk to me. And they came back and, 2 weeks later with this deal. And I added on the cherry on top, which was making them waive all the fees of prosecution. I just heard Linda talking about the money, and about, saving taxpayers money on extradition. How much money do you think in prosecution costs there were trying to prosecute me? Anyway, so that's the basic gist of the deal. Is no contest to armed robbery. I plead no contest to armed robbery, the one charge. And then I go ahead and get 910 days time served, right? So I took 370 years and a life sentence and turned it into 910 days time served. So I get to
sounds like you should
walk
have been
out
a
of jail.
defendant in the YSL case.
Yeah, that's a YSL sentence.
Yeah,
That's it.
and
YSL
then to
deal.
go from there, and now not only that, I have the ability to take it to civil court now, where I can prove my innocence in civil court, and go ahead and stop risking my behind and banging my head against the wall in criminal court, and just go ahead and start taking their money.
And
So-
let me,
so who
let
do
me
you
make
sue?
it clear. Let me make it clear. Hold on a second. Let me make it clear. You have no probation, so they can't come after you to say you violated probation. There's nothing. You are free. It's
Nothing.
like they signed off. Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
I'm done.
that reminds
I'm
me of something.
absolutely done.
That reminds me, Linda. Let me back up just one step. What did they do to violate you back to prison? Because after
Okay, well, put me back in
this
jail.
trial, you were
There
out
is a
into
distinction
jail.
between
Sorry,
she made
jail.
that clear
Jail.
earlier too. There's a distinction between jail and prison.
So you were back in Seattle, and the first trial had ended.
Right.
So what happened then
And-
to get you back in jail?
Well, and the judge, okay, they did it specifically to try and tie my hands behind my back, because what they did is they yanked my pretrial, my bond and my pretrial release, saying that I failed, I missed a UA, right? But even in the guy's own report, he says I went to the UA and was denied the ability to test that day. I go back in and test the next
What's
day.
the UA?
and-
UA what? UA?
UA is urine analysis, right?
Okay.
So,
Right.
again, they were testing me for alcohol is what they were testing me for. But I go in and I go to test that day, and they told me I couldn't test, and they gave me a sheet, and I sent it to my officer, right? Go ahead and send that to him and tell him what happened. And I'm like, they wouldn't let me test. And man, he's like, well, go in the next. And I go in the next day, and I come up clean, right? But he used that. And again, they basically lied and said I didn't show up for the UA, and that's completely untrue. But they used that to go ahead and bring me back and put me back in jail. And even the judge, again, when the judge, I tried to approach him about it at the, not the first appearance, but at the, the arraignment, which there's no, it's technically not even an arraignment since I wasn't charged with a new crime. But we go in and have this arraignment, and I'm like, look, Your Honor, you were supposed to give me notification and have a hearing before you ever revoked my bond, right? That's what the law says. And he's like, oh no, you're wrong. And then, Manny, again, I also argue the $3.1 million bond he put on me, which was like, okay, again, I'm going through a divorce. I don't have that kind of money. And man, by the 8th Amendment, that's excessive bond. You know what I'm saying? You're taking somebody who's indigent now and giving them a $3.1 million bond. That's the same as saying there is no bond, So anyway, he just ignored all those arguments. But the whole point was to tie my hands behind my back, push me to trial in September without me being able to be prepared, right? Because now I lost all the work I had on my laptop. I don't have the same ability to do the work, as I did. I didn't even have any of my case files, anything like that to work with originally. Hell, I didn't even have pencil and paper, man, for about a month. So the thing is so they try and push me to trial on the 6th. What they didn't count on is what I ended up doing.
Of September?
Well, what I ended up doing is when they tried to push me into trial.
Of September 6, 2024?
Yeah, 2024.
Okay.
They tried to, this past September. I was supposed to go to trial September 6th. But instead of going to trial, what I did is I disqualified the judge. And when I did that, I filed a motion to disqualify the judge. I knew he was going to deny it. I mean, they're going to deny it, right? Especially, again, down there, I've told you my thoughts about how dirty they are down there. But the judge goes ahead and denies it. And I had a petition for a writ of prohibition ready for the 3rd DCA for the appellate court, right? I already had it ready to go. And I was like, well, Your Honor, I had a feeling you might do that. So I already have a writ, an application for a writ of prohibition ready for the 3rd DCA. All I got to do is fill in the blanks and I'll have it out by tomorrow. But I suggest we take a continuance until we can decide whether or not, until the higher court can decide whether or not you're going to be the judge. And that bought me 3 months to get ready for trial. So by the time we made this deal, I was already ready for trial. I was getting to the point where, obviously, they even admitted in the negotiations they couldn't beat me at trial. That wasn't going to happen. What the threat was with them is they threatened me with this. They were like, well, we may not be able to beat you, but we're going to get one juror every time. When we take you to trial, there's a good chance we're going to get one juror out of the 12. And what we're going to do is we're just going to keep on taking you back to trial over and over and over again, getting that one juror. And since the state attorney just got reelected, well, he could do that for at least another 4 years. That was what I was looking at. So I'm looking at 4 years, 4 or 5 years of being incarcerated and doing, again, fighting the criminal case the hardest way possible when they still have all this leverage over me, right? But by doing this, now it just erased all that leverage. They have none of that. They can never take me back to trial for it. They can never arrest me again for it. It's over. And as far as punishment goes, like I said, I didn't take probation. There's nothing that, it's over as far as it goes. But that also means I can come back in civil court. Huh?
Who was the judge? Let me just stop you. Who was the judge who took the plea?
That would be Judge Morgan.
Was that a
because
different
if you
judge?
remember correctly, Judge Jones disqualified himself after the first trial.
After the first trial, right.
So Judge Morgan was the actual judge this time around.
And
you had a guy in between.
Go ahead.
Is this the guy you tried to get disqualified?
This is the one I tried to get disqualified. And it was cracking me up because, even when we made the plea deal, and there's video out there of the actual hearings somewhere's out there. There was actually a reporter who actually showed up and videotaped it. But so it's floating around out there somewheres. But the thing is when he did that, I'm looking at the one charge I'm pleading no contest to, right? And even that one charge, that one charge is 30 years maximum, right? And I'm expecting Judge Morgan to say something. Say something that, man, I'm getting 910 days on a 30-year maximum charge. And nope, he was more than happy to sign it and get rid of me. So I was like, okay, these guys are about as done as it gets.
Okay, so let me ask you this: as we look at the civil case, who's on the hit list? Who are you going after?
Oh man, well, if you look at the clerk of court's record, you got to remember we've already been through this with them because we went through a fight with them to preserve Paula's testimony, and most of the defendants are listed there already.
Stop
Paula,
1 second. Explain who Paula was.
That's Paula
Belmont.
Paula
was a victim who actually testified on my side. By the way, there was also 2 victims that testified on my side, just to let everybody know.
Let's start with Paula.
Yeah, Paula actually passed away about 6 days after my trial. And the thing is, we did preserve her testimony in the criminal.
Yeah, but who was she? There's a lot of people.
She was Paula was actually the target of their robbery. She got her throat slit, she got beat, she got robbed. It was a nightmare for her. So that's who she is. And
but she was a friend, right? Wasn't she a friend of yours?
One of my best friends and biggest advocates, towards the time of her death. So she actually, like I said, she did testify for me at trial, at least tried to, and then we ended up going to the preserved testimony. But as you guys know, we can't use the preserved testimony from a criminal case in civil cases, right? Because those lawyers haven't had a chance to question it. Right. Well, they after a bunch of fighting, because we beat them 3 times in civil court there. But the thing was, we had to go ahead and file it to preserve her testimony for future lawsuits. Is basically what it was. And yes, we had to name off a bunch of the defendants so that they would have their lawyers would have the opportunity to question her. Right. And yes, we've got the county, the sheriff's department, the state attorney's office, Dennis Ward, who's the state attorney, the sheriff, a dozen, different officers. There's a lot of people on the list.
But Paula,
it did crack me up.
What did Paula say? What did she say?
She said she was 100% sure it wasn't me. She said that more than once, and actually she blurted out during trial that she knew it was John Travis Johnson. That's what she said. She blurted that out when she was actually testifying. Of course, the judge told the jury to ignore that and strike it. And but you know how it is too. You can't unring a bell. So when she blurted that out, I'm sure that did help me at trial. But the thing is okay. Paul has been saying that for years. But also another one that's been saying it for years is Todd O'Quinn. Todd O'Quinn is another victim. He's the guy who actually saw the white suspect take off his mask and run down the street and actually jump into a truck, which totally blows away John Travis Johnson's story. He was not allowed to testify at the first trial, though. The judge wouldn't sign the order to bring him down from prison. So he wasn't allowed to testify. But that's the thing is, we've got plenty of these defendants. But one of the things that I'll tell you right now, there are 2 things now that have been, really, it didn't feel like I won quite yet up until I heard a couple things. And one of them was Dennis Ward admitting that he knows he's going to be sued, right? Because Dennis Ward, the state attorney, got on radio broadcast and they were talking to him about it, and he had to admit that, yes, man, I am going to come back and sue the sheriff's department and sue him and sue, all these people. And again, if your investigation was so good and your prosecution was so good, then why can I come back and sue you for it? You know what I mean? So it's, and one of the cool things again about Florida is I'm allowed to prove my innocence in civil court, which, that means a lot to me personally. You know that I had to accept when they were making that threat that, I may never hear the not guilty I wanted, but I know damn well they'll never hear the guilty that they wanted to hear. So I mean, you're kind of stuck in that position.
Does anyone,
let's talk about.
has anyone, go ahead, Michael.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I wanted to get into this Travis stuff, but go ahead.
Okay.
LKB.
Has anyone been prosecuted for this crime besides you? Has anyone been convicted of the crime against
Yes.
Paula?
You have Rory Wilson. He's the guy, by all the evidence, that actually stabbed Matthew Bonnet to death, actually slit Paula's throat, beat her. This is the guy who's now in prison doing life plus 30, I want to say. I want to say he's doing life plus 30. Now, John Travis Johnson, that one's a trip a little bit because, okay, this is the guy they cut the deal with to testify against me, and it's the only person that they had. The only evidence they had is this guy's testimony. Well, he goes ahead and actually, irony being what it is, he had absconded to Texas because he was on probation, and that's the thing is, okay, one of the things Dennis Ward's going to have trouble explaining is, okay, he's been saying for years now, the reason they gave John Travis Johnson such a sweet deal was because he was just the getaway driver. He wasn't as culpable, blah, blah, blah. Right. Well, I just got a better deal than John Travis Johnson did. Right. And, and John Travis Johnson, I think he pled guilty to 3 charges and he did 4 years in jail. And then he got 5 years probation contingent upon him testifying against me and Rory. And if he failed any of that, he was looking at 30 years in prison. Right. That was his deal. The thing is come to find out after I got in jail that he violated every bit of his probation, every single bit of it, never paid the money, never checked in, failed a few drug tests, and absconded to Texas. And yet they let this guy wander around free.
So he was never violated. Okay, let me ask you this then. And I remember he did plead to the robbery for sure. But let's put the time frame together here. The crimes took place November 17, 2017.
Yes.
He does his deal. He gets out in May of 2023. So
right. Well, actually,
even when he testifies in your trial, he's a free man at that point.
I want to say it was actually May of 22. I'm not sure.
Oh, is it? My note said 23, but I will defer to your better recollection. Fact is, he was out at the time he testified.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to talk about him in the context of a civil case and some stuff that you've just shared with us for the first time, I believe, stuff that was found in his cell, or really it's a book that you think may have.
I would have never found it if I hadn't gone to jail. There were actually some benefits, and Lord knows there's not many benefits of going to jail, but I actually did find out more about what John Travis Johnson had done while he was in jail and what he'd done when he was out of jail. I found out both of those things.
Okay, so let me just show pictures of this is the book. An interesting book, to say the least. And then we want to listen to some of his testimony. So this is the book that I guess he had at the time in his cell.
Right. This is what he was reading when he made the plea deal with the prosecutors.
Okay, Dark Psychology and Manipulation. 11 books in one.
11 books in one. And you too can practice mind control.
And if there is some question as to whether or not that was his book, I got a picture of the spine of the book, which I can't claim to know his prisoner or jailhouse number, but I would assume that his name and that number is legit,
right.
So that we know it was his book. What's your theory about how this book played into his decision to testify against you?
Well, I think he was, trying to sharpen up the lies. I mean, obviously that's what that book is all about. The whole book is on how to manipulate people and lie. That's basically what it boils down to. And I think it would have looked very interesting to the jury if I went up there and I showed him that book and I was like, okay, so this is what you were reading when you were in jail, when you made this deal, right? And this jury is supposed to believe you. I mean, if you read even the back cover of it, would you like to control others? Would you like to bend them to your will? All this other kind of crap that's on the back of this book. And, the thing is, Yes, that is his name and his jailhouse number, because that's how they do it when you're there. Any books that you buy and have brought in, or somebody sends you, they write your name and your inmate number on it so that they know that's your book. It doesn't belong to the jail. I told you I also went further and got records from the jail proving that it was his book, just in case he decided to lie when he was on the stand. But that was definitely one of the things I was going to bust out during the criminal trial if we had gone back to trial and done this over.
So you didn't get to use it in the first trial. You have it now in hand. You're probably going to try and use it in the civil trial. Let's give folks a sense of his testimony at the first trial. And this is some of your cross-examination. I got a couple little chunks here. So let's start with chunk number 1. Then we'll stop, talk about that, and pick up where we left off here.
This deal spares you from the life sentence, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, this is obviously Ty Tucker cross-examining a former co-defendant, the guy who took, at the very least, a guilty plea on the robbery, but he is free at the time he's testifying. And you're talking about the deal that allowed him to do that.
And I think Mr. Mansfield said that it's dependent on your cooperation with the state, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and what happens if you don't cooperate with the state?
Then the deal is null and void. It's a breach of contract.
Okay, and what happens then?
Then the judge has the ability to re-sentence me in any way he sees fit.
Okay. Is there a specific term of years?
I believe it was called a hammer clause. Life sentence.
Life sentence. Okay. So if you violate this deal, it's a life sentence.
Possibly.
Okay. Now, did it say anything in that deal about being untruthful? What would happen?
If they believed I was untruthful, this would also be a breach of contract.
Now, prior to this deal, again, did you have your attorney file any kind of motions that wanted to suppress your statements?
I don't recall. I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't think there was any suppressing of my statements.
Okay. But you wouldn't know. He would have done that without your permission?
I don't believe he would have done it without my permission, no.
Oh, no. So he did it with your permission?
I don't know if he did this or not. I'm not sure. I don't understand the process of filing motions, and I don't remember every single discussion we had at all. These were very short, brief moments that I got to speak with him.
Okay. So you don't remember this conversation with your attorney?
Objection, Judge. First of all, asked and answered. Secondly, that's not what he just testified to.
Okay, I will sustain the objection.
Maybe I need to be a little clearer. You said that you had numerous conversations with your attorney, short, correct?
Short conversations.
Short conversations.
Yes.
But were you aware of what your attorney was doing for you?
Yes.
Okay. And what if I told you that, would you be surprised to learn there was a motion to suppress filed for you?
No.
Okay. And it was not, you said if your attorney did this, that you would have been aware, correct?
Yes, pretty sure I would. I spent a lot of money on my attorney to handle this so that I wouldn't have to. I gave him full reign to do what he thought necessary as a defense attorney should be. The process of filing motions, I don't understand the procedure of law, so I'm not going to say I understood exactly what he was doing, but I know he was in my best interest. That's all I can really say.
Okay,
let's
so
reset what that was. Let's reset what that was, because there's some questions from our viewers about who that was. What was he testifying
so
to?
and I want to let me do that, and then I'll ask Ty the question. So on the stand there is really the key witness in the case against Franklin Ty Tucker first time around. It was a murder case, robbery case, and this guy put his best testimony in front of this jury, suggesting you, Ty Tucker, were the guy with the knife, the guy that killed which guy, which one?
Just watch. They want to know who was it.
Oh,
that was
yes. Oh, yeah. That's Travis. Strangely, John Johnson, known as Travis. Yeah, I guess if my name's John Johnson, maybe Travis is a little more exotic. So
Well,
yeah,
it's John Travis Johnson.
I know. You go with that middle name because it's a little less vanilla.
I hear you.
Okay, so he's testifying on behalf of the prosecution to put you away. He's the guy. He's the key guy. Now, as to the motion that you mentioned that he seemed to have no awareness of, what motion to suppress was in play? What were they trying to keep out?
Well, this is one I was trying to get in, and my lawyers assured me I could get it in. And later, I went and looked at the exceptions to hearsay rule, and it should have been allowed, but it was actually a motion to suppress that his lawyer had filed, claiming that all his prior testimony, the testimony he was giving on the stand that day, right, all of it was a lie. It had been coerced by investigators, coerced by prosecutors. It was all a lie, and he was trying to have it suppressed based on those grounds. So now it's not all a lie after you make a deal with the prosecutor. The prosecutor basically paid him to come back and tell that a lie again at trial. And that's where we were trying to go with it. Judge was not allowing it in, though. So that didn't end up making it in.
Right. Okay, so now it makes perfect sense. So this guy comes along, has this, makes some statements. His attorney then wants to suppress because they don't help Mr. Johnson.
Right.
Then he makes a deal, and those statements that don't help Mr. Johnson but really stick it to you are then fine. And that
there you go. You got it, Mike.
Okay.
Right. You got it.
Okay, I got you. Okay, so I want to hear from some more of this guy because you get a chance to kind of challenge him a little bit more.
I like it when he jumped up and it looked like he was going to pop me. I would have taken that shot.
I'm curious, with our audience, what do they think of this guy as we look at some of this testimony? Does he come off as a liar, as a cheat? I do have a question about his ponytail. He has his hair pulled back in a ponytail. Did he normally wear it that way on the street?
No, he
was more like free flowing then.
Now, and he used to have like a curly mohawk or whatever. He had brown hair at the time.
Okay, I just thought maybe he's trying to clean himself up, so that's why he pulled that back.
Clean himself up? They didn't even put him in a suit.
Again, did you vacillate prior to giving the current story that you have now to the investigator?
Okay, let me set this up a little bit. You're talking about basically the statement he gave to the investigator that was then disciplined. Am I right? What's her name again?
That would be Penny Phelps, former captain.
Okay.
Who, by the way, just lost her lawsuit against me too. Again,
why was she disciplined?
She actually ended up getting disciplined because of this case. It was for an audio tape where they accidentally recorded themselves talking about the case, right? Well, one of the things they did is she told a uniformed officer to go and play the role of, go pull over Rory Wilson to ID him and play the role of a neo-Nazi, a white supremacist cop, a racist cop. And that's what got her in the biggest trouble, right? It's like, okay, because you're telling a uniformed officer to do this. And something she still couldn't seem to get in her lawsuits is, man, I mean, if anybody in the public had seen that, then all it looks like is a white racist cop messing with a black guy, right? That's what she literally tells him. I want you to be the white racist cop messing with a black guy. Now she kept on bringing up undercover work, and how if you're trying to infiltrate the KKK, then you can go and act like a white supremacist. Well, that's true, but man, that's kind of the whole point of undercover. They don't know you're a cop. If you have a uniformed officer doing this in a squad car, then all they see is a racist cop messing with a black guy. Anybody who sees that in the public, I mean, you're bringing all kinds of backlash on the sheriff's department. So she ended up getting fired over that part of it.
Okay, so in this case, she's interviewing Mr. Travis Johnson about what happened, but prior to his official statement, she gives him her version of what she thinks happened, and that's
right. And he just says, "Yep, that's what happened."
And that's what you're cross-examining him about. So let's watch that.
Rephrase the question.
Did you tell them a different story prior to telling them the story you have now?
I have not changed my story.
Okay. Never?
There might have been some inconsistencies. Yes, I'm pretty sure, but as far as the baseline of the story, nothing has changed.
Okay. Now, this is even when the investigators first brought you in, you told them this story.
Yes, I've been saying and maintaining my participation in this event the entire time, and the individuals involved with me.
Okay, so made no attempt to tell a different one.
No.
Okay. And, okay, after you gave investigators this story, did you ever say anything different then? Did you ever give another story after this?
My story's been fairly consistent. There might be some inconsistencies, but as far as the truth goes, the truth doesn't change. Mr. Tucker, I have told the truth from the beginning.
Okay. And to be clear, did you come up with this story on your own?
My story is the way that I told it. The narrative that was recited by Officer Penny Phelps, who I'm sure you're referring to, she's a good detective. She may have done things wrong, but she figured this out. And I was caught, and I admitted to it. She had laid out the entire narrative to me, and I agreed with her because she was right.
Okay. That wasn't what I asked you.
But this is exactly what was asked.
Excuse me. I asked you, did somebody else come up with your story?
No, she did not come up with my story. She understood the case and understood the nature of what had happened and explained it very clearly what she understood, and she hit it right on the head. And I told her in my own words what she had basically just narrated to me because it was the truth.
All right. I don't know. Did he sell it well enough?
I love that ducking and dodging, right?
I'm not so sure. And so, clearly, well, we don't know. Did you ever talk to any of the jurors after the fact to see who?
Yeah, we actually did. I mean, well, we didn't talk to them specifically, but actually I did talk to one, and man, he wanted to talk about, here's a weird story for you. When I was in jail, right after I got arrested, after I got, put back in jail, I'm in there, and first off, there's a lady from the case in there, man, who doesn't like me very much, named Cece, right? And she's still a trainer for the sheriff's department, but she actually did the search on the vehicle and did some other things for the case. Didn't like me very much, but apparently is still a trainer there. Thing is, but they brought in a bunch of cadets I was in maximum security, so they bring a bunch of cadets into the dorm, and I'm looking at the cadets, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, this guy looks familiar. I don't know where do I know this guy from? So I actually go up and ask him. I go up to him like, hey man, where do I know you from? And he's like, man, I was on your jury. I'm one of your biggest fans. And immediately it clicked. I was like, oh man, Beasley, that's who you are. And man, it immediately clicked. So I thanked him profusely because he actually voted for my innocence. So
crazy. That's like when you see a teacher not in school. It's a whole different thing. So, what would you learn from him? What was the breakdown in the jury? Who was for you? Who was against you?
Well, we learned the breakdown of the jury. From again, some other people did interviews with them, and we got the information from them. But originally the breakdown was 8-4, and then it went to 9-3 after the Allen charge.
For guilt or for acquittal?
No, this was for guilt, because you got to remember they got away with lying to the jury at the end of that in their closing arguments. That was the one that worried me, because the judge allowed that, and man, that should have never been allowed. But the thing is he's facing his own problems for that now, because that's another one. The judge is. I did file a JQC complaint while I was in jail, and yes, he's being investigated for that right now. They're going back over the entire trial, all the trial video footage, and yeah, there's a number of things the judge did wrong in there. So we're going to have to see what they decide, eventually here, and see what his punishment's going to be.
So bottom line is, you convinced 4 and then 3 once they put the jury in a headlock and gave them the the dynamite charge. They swayed one more person for guilt, but you still had 3 on your side that weren't going to bend.
Well, and actually, that's even what the prosecutor said when we were doing the negotiations for this deal. They were like, you had a couple of people in there who were adamant that, they were not going to convict you. You know what I mean? And he's like, there's nothing saying that, this is when I told you about the threat. They were like, there's nothing saying we can't get 1 or 2 men doing it for us. And that's absolutely true. It's a lot easier for the state to get those adamant people than it is for a defendant. So I had to take those things into consideration.
Linda, let me ask you this. I mean, in theory, a prosecution can refile, new trial. But, equity would prevent them from doing that ad nauseum. in your experience, what, 2 times, 3 times? What do you think?
There's a case out there where the courts have allowed it 5 times. Okay.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I've read case law where it's
outrageous.
5 times.
So 5 times,
Yep.
I think, was the most that we've seen that the courts have allowed, and there's been no. They the courts basically will give the prosecution almost a free reign. I mean, it's really it's quite frankly unbelievable. Because usually after 2 times, right, nothing is going to change. Nothing
Yeah.
is
Your case
changing.
stinks. You stink. Something is bad. And
Well, and then they had to look at it as they're going into this case. Okay, you got to remember, in that first case, the judge nuked off almost all my defendants. I mean, not my defendants, my witnesses, right? So he nuked off almost all my witnesses. So while I got to see exactly everything they were bringing, right, they didn't get to see any of my witnesses. They didn't get to see, like, okay, one of the big misconceptions, okay, because like I said, there were 2 victims who said 100% sure it wasn't me. One of them did not get to testify in the first trial. Well, he was coming back and he was definitely going to testify in the second trial. But the thing is they thought that was my star witness. No, actually, my star witness was the lead detective. The lead detective was going to be my star witness because he actually witnessed most of the misconduct. He could verify the videos. He could verify everything, so he was going to be my star witness going back the second time.
So Wrestler's mom wants to know where you're at. Are you still here back there?
I am in South Carolina at my brother's right now. I'm not back in Oregon yet. I am going to have to go back out to Oregon sometime soon. But I needed to get, because like I said, when they extradited me, I didn't have my wallet, didn't have my phone, my belt, my shoelaces, none of that. They didn't bring any of that with me.
Yeah, last
So
time we
when they
talked,
let
you
me
were just
out-
on the verge of that. I remember you were there, and you still weren't sure what they were going to do and how hard they were going to come after you.
Oh yeah, no, I hear you. And the thing is so when they released me, I didn't have anything. I mean, like I said, I didn't even have shoelaces. So it took me a second. And actually, unfortunately, this, I don't think I told you guys this, but I ended up in the hospital right after I got released.
What
I
happened?
had actually, man, it's, again, talk about timing being what it is. I almost bled to death after I got out. I had internal bleeding and they had to give me a transfusion. They actually took me by ambulance up to Miami, all that stuff. So I was actually out of jail, but in the hospital for almost 2 weeks, something like that. I don't know, something like that. But the bottom line is, once I got out of the hospital, now I'm up in Miami. And man, my brother came down, got me, brought me to South Carolina. And now I can go ahead and get my accounts straightened up and, get everything, man, kind of, get back into the loop of things, so to speak,
Okay, so Ty, when we were watching you from when we covered your trial, Michael and I were at Law and Crime, and I think we were the only 2 anchors that kept saying, "No, he's doing a really good job." Other people,
Yeah.
he's a self-represented. We'd have guests on it, and he's doing a really good job. I think he's certainly going to get the hung. He may get the not guilty, and also Missy Mayhem was one of our great moderators here. Asked, "What legal training do you have, and are you self-taught?"
Self-taught. I have no legal training, no formal legal training. I studied something a little more complicated when I was in school because I studied war. I studied the strategies of war, which, and I've come to the conclusion now that, law is nothing more than another means for waging war. That's basically it. It's just how governments wage war on their own people. It's basically how it is. But it also is why my strategy was a lot more diverse than what you see in the courtroom. And actually, that's something a lot of people miss when they watch court TV or even Law and Crime or any of them. Is what you see at that trial. That's 10% of the battle, I would say. It's about 10% of the fight. Most of the fighting happens in pretrial when you're arguing motions, when you're arguing what's going to be allowed at trial. When you're arguing motions in limine, when you're arguing, motions to dismiss. I mean, and the real fighting goes on well before you ever get to trial. In my opinion.
Yep.
So
And if somebody just tuned in just now, they would think, "Oh, who's this attorney that they have on with?"
No. I mean, I keep on telling people I'm not arrogant enough to be an attorney. No offense.
Nope. None taken.
But
So let's look forward now. What's the plan? Yes, you got this case
I got
brewing,
quite a few
but
plans. Obviously, there's the civil suits, and right now we are shopping for law firms who are going to handle. It's a lot of litigation, so we're looking for a bigger law firm to go and handle all the litigation because you've got state torts, you've got 1983 federal lawsuits. You've got, there's a lot of lawsuits we're looking at here, and a lot of damages we're looking at here. So Lauren and I are working on that. Then, besides that, I've been working with civil rights groups down there with the ACLU. I've contacted them. This is actually shortly, I shouldn't say working with them. Shortly before I got out, I had been contacting these people, and it was, okay, not only do I want them to be afraid of the lawsuits I have coming, but I want to see some class actions for what they've been doing to everybody down there. One of the things is and talking about unconventional strategies. Yes, they put me in jail to tie my hands behind my back, but I had 7 years of knowing how to fight, learning how to fight. And what do you think I was going to do? You didn't think I was going to teach the other inmates how to fight? So now you've got a problem. Now I'm like a cancer in there. All of a sudden, man, people started going pro se and winning their cases.
The DA got reelected. The DA who put you in jail.
Yes, he did get reelected.
He did get reelected.
Yeah, he got reelected. But it got to the point where when I was writing motions, I would write them as fill in the blank, right? So other inmates could go ahead and use the motions. And when I did that,
interesting.
Well, all the courts, all the courts down there started seeing my motions popping up all the time. And this PD, talk about, man, making a dumb comment, but this PD that they were talking about in court. I wasn't there personally, but they were talking about it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, he's some kind of jailhouse Jesus, thinks he can save everybody." So it's like, so I earned a little bit of a reputation down there and made it again. You talk about strategy. I'm making it so that you threw me in jail because you want to tie me my hands behind my back, but now I'm making you pay for that decision, right? Because now, man, I'm just going to make sure that, man, everybody, man, is going ahead and trying to win their cases. Because the PDs down there are nothing more than lapdogs to the state, in my opinion. It's just, literally, and it's unfortunate. When you've got that kind of corruption down there, the PD can't really do too much. It got to the point. Okay, in my entire history with this, I have never seen a PD get somebody out of jail. Not once. Not once down there. Actually, even as far as the case goes, nobody has ever won a murder trial down there. Not a lawyer. You know what I mean? So
it is a weird kind of that's a weird little part of the world, don't you think?
Oh yeah, very. Yeah. Again, you're talking about, man. You got about 80,000 people in that judicial district.
We're talking about Key West. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, and they have an ungodly amount of money. So that, man, makes it, that makes it a whole different story. But the thing is yes, it's highly corrupt. Again, it always has been. They've had decades of this, man. They've always, man, had problems with corruption because when you got a lot of money, especially illegal money, a lot of stuff coming in from the cocaine trade, then yes, you're going to have corruption that follows along with it. It's just, natural progression, I guess.
Let me, Linda, I'm going to ask a question, and then we can ping pong back and forth for a couple before we kick Ty loose. And I, the elephant in the room, and I hate to even bring it up because there is another victim of this whole mess, and that is your marriage. We talked with your former wife. She began CrossFit, and it didn't survive what you've gone through. But you guys are still friends. You're still working on stuff. Last name Janae, Lauren Janae, right?
We talked about things, and look, neither one of us knows how much this affected our marriage. We really don't. To say they put a gun to our head, that's an understatement. The stuff they put us through, and again, even with my wife, it was like, how many times I watched that woman cry because we thought it was going to be over, and then all of a sudden it wasn't over. It's like how much of our marriage is due to that, we don't know. Right. And, and her and I are still trying to figure that out. We'll work on that, as we go along here. What we do know, though, is, it doesn't benefit us to sit there and play the blame game for what happened. And, moving forward, yes, they damaged her a lot. Like, if you remember, even in the closing arguments at trial, they tried to accuse her of bribing Paula.
I remember that.
And they had no evidence of that at all. And, we're looking at that now. I fully understand that, most of the time they get prosecutorial immunity for anything they do as their job as prosecutor. Right. However, since that was on national TV and you just you just slandered her on national TV, I don't know whether it's libelous or not. That's again for the lawyers to figure out. I'd let the law firm go ahead and figure that out. I mean, we've identified some stuff that we already know is libelous, but is that libelous? I don't know. I just know that, man, it severely hurt her reputation doing that. And they had no proof, no proof to back it up. So can they be held liable for it? I don't know. It's kind of a special circumstance. I don't know.
But she was very supportive through the whole process, and
Yes.
even with some other endeavors you guys are involved with. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, and she is still definitely. We still talk. Matter of fact, I got off with the phone with her just before I got on here, and we are definitely still working with each other on these lawsuits and trying to hold these people accountable for the things they did. It's like, look, part of the reason why they get away with this crap is because nobody, people let them get away with it. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people don't feel like they can do anything about it. So, it's one of those things. We're going to, look, we're in a position where we can hold them accountable, and we're going to. That's just basically it. And hopefully our relationship will continue to strengthen as we move forward, and as we can understand what happened. I used to kind of tease her all the time, and I'd be like, when this is all over, I hope somebody can sit me down and tell me exactly what happened, because it's been nothing but craziness for 7 years.
Well, what are you going to do next? So besides the lawsuit, what is on your?
I have a couple of books already written. I do have a couple of books already written that I wrote while I was in jail. And I do plan on putting those out once I get them onto Word and get them onto a PDF. I have one called Pro Se Warrior, the art of legal self-defense. Right?
Okay.
Is going to be one of them, and that's just basically my thoughts and strategies on how to fight pro se. I also have one called Pro Se Revolution, where I think going pro se is the way to go in a lot of ways. There's some distinct advantages to going pro se, and Linda, you actually picked them up even in a trial. Some of the distinct advantages of going pro se, but one of them is if you have a dirty system, like if everybody in that jail went pro se today, it would shut the entire system down.
Oh, absolutely.
You'd be screwed. You'd be screwed, right? Because one thing is, if nothing else, they can never move as fast as a pro se defendant. It takes a PD 3 months to come out with a motion, right? Because they have
there's none of this, Ty.
Yeah,
it's a wing.
No, I hear you. And the thing is that in all reality, it takes them that long because they have 50 some odd clients or whatever. To come up with a motion, it takes them months to do that, right? Plus, they also have the same goal as the state. Both the state and the defense have the same goal: leave you in jail and get you to the point where you're willing to take a plea. Everything's solved by plea deal nowadays. Hell, I don't even think most lawyers even know how to go to trial anymore, to be honest. But the thing is okay, even with me handwriting my motions, and even with me having to send them in via snail mail, which took it 10 days for me to get a motion in, right? Okay, while it takes them 3 months to do one motion, I can do 20 in a week. I can literally hit you with a blitzkrieg of 20 motions in one day. Now what do? You're the prosecution. You have to address all these, and so does the judge. You know what I'm saying? So now what do? I can move faster than you can all day, and because I only have one client, I actually care about my client. And yes, man, I have all the time in the world, 24 hours a day, to do nothing but work on my case.
Well, we hope to follow you as you go through this case. You can see that our core of very tired viewers, after all that's happened today in the law, are very interested in your case. You definitely piqued their interest. So I hope you'll give us that access, because since we've been on Law and Crime, we have found you fascinating, interesting, and like a terrific lawyer, and we're
I actually, because one of the other anchors and news people that really got the whole pro se thing right off the rip, and man, he actually said he agreed with you about the benefits of, again, most people don't understand. A jury wants to hear it from the defendant. They always do. Just like if somebody did you wrong, you want to go to them and you don't want to get the story from somebody else. You want to go right to them and ask them. Right. Well, the jury wants the same thing, and they very rarely ever get that. I will say, I do think the best defense of all time, is if you can have a pro se defendant with standby counsel. with somebody there who can make sure they follow the rules, make sure they follow the rules of evidence, make sure that they know what they're doing.
And you had a couple, right? You had a couple standby counsel, right?
No, they wouldn't allow me to have standby counsel.
I thought you had standby
I
counsel
wasn't
right
allowed to
behind
have
you.
my legal advisors because I told him, I was like, well, you may not give me standby counsel, but you can't stop me from having advisors.
Right,
and he's like, yeah, but they can't sit at the defense table.
Oh, that's what I was seeing then, because they were back.
That's why you see me texting sometimes. I'm
gotcha.
asking lawyers, man, okay, what's about, what about this?
Yeah.
So
okay.
Okay.
Any other shows or podcasts that you can tell us about?
Oh yeah, actually that's true too. There is other things coming out. I've been approached by numerous people for different projects, but I do know there's one coming out very soon. This guy David Waters, he's done a lot of work actually, a lot of different work, but he's putting out a podcast. It's a whole series, and I can't wait. I personally can't wait for it, because he has a lot of interviews that I've never heard, right? So, and man, one of them being with Paula. He was the journalist who did the very last interview with Paula during the trial.
Oh wow!
And I haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, that's a tearjerker.
I can't wait to actually, see what what he's done.
Well, that may
I do know that he's definitely dug deep.
Right.
So should be fairly interesting. He's gone into all aspects of my life. He's actually gone to friends, family. He's gone to even other prisoners at the jail. He actually talked to them. I mean, he talked to a whole bunch of people. So it should be a real interesting podcast. And I think he told me that one will be coming out in about another month and a half, 2 months, something like that.
Okay, we will keep an eye out for that and help you promote it and get some eyeballs on that.
Oh yeah, I love that. I can't, like I said, I can't wait because I don't even know what's in it for the most part. So it should be interesting.
Cool. All right, sir.
All right, guys.
Appreciate it, and best of luck going forward with all of this. We will continue to check in with you. And
and look, anytime you guys want to talk, you know where I'm at. You got my number, you got my email. Anytime you want to talk, I'm always more than happy to go ahead and talk to you guys again. Back to the whole anchor. Just one more thing. We're back to the anchor thing. Vinny Politan managed to squeeze me in last night on Court TV.
Oh, good for him.
At the very end.
Good for Vinny.
But he had it, but I mean, he had, the two subjects he was working on was the Midland shooting and P. Diddy. So, getting squeezed in on that one was like, okay, I feel pretty good. But and even better when he literally comes out, he's like, Ty Tucker wins. And I'm like, yeah. Made me feel pretty good.
Yep, he's a good guy.
He's taken a lot of criticism, and man, just to even have lawyers like you, lawyers like him, acknowledge what's happened here and acknowledge exactly you realize part of the strategy that we used, and and how valuable it can be. Again, this didn't happen by accident. It took a lot of work out of us to do this, and it wasn't easy. I'll tell you that. So.
Yep.
Well,
you're
an inspiration. It's a painful but successful story, and so we will continue to follow it. Mr. Franklin Ty Tucker, thank you, buddy. We appreciate it.
You don't always have a fool for a client. Not always.
There you go. Take care, man. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Take care, bud.
Bye.
It's a great story. It's
especially
painful,
in light of YSL, right? Especially in light of YSL.
Yeah, you're right. And some of these other, I thought about the Sarah Boone case because remember she was presented with a similar option, which was here's the deal. It's 15 years. It's pretty low, risk.
She was guilty. But she was guilty.
I was just talking about the pleading process, just the pleading process.
Yeah.
And she said no thanks, and she even represented herself for a heartbeat before her ninth attorney actually went to trial, and it didn't end quite so well for Sarah Boone. But the machinations that take place prior are always fascinating, and he is a case study. There's no doubt about it, literally. So we will.
No doubt about it. And it's just amazing because when you think about it, what did the DA do? They found a way to violate his probation, right? To bring him back, put him in jail. Eventually, they coerce this plea.
They give him the Rice. That's the Rice Street treatment. They give him the Rice Street treatment.
And then they say, you see, we won. We got a conviction. Boom, boom, boom. And that's. I think it's interesting to me because we started the show by talking about. We're going to do a show at the end of the week on Luigi Mangione, right? Who got indicted today in New York City. And in addition to the murder count, he was indicted for terrorism, which I fully expected because I expect the feds to indict him. But I think
okay.
that's because people don't trust. They don't trust the jury system, right? Maybe the jurors are saying, hey, we don't trust prosecutors because we think sometimes you overstep your bounds, so that when you get cases that are in the public heartbeat, should we say, everyone has some criticism of prosecutors, no matter how horrendous the crime may seem to others, and
They
how
want
horrendous
the
the crime
process to be
is.
fair. They want it to be fair. That's what people
Right,
want. I
right.
don't
They
care
want it to
what the
be fair.
perception is
Right,
of the defendant. They want it to be a fair process.
right.
And, unfortunately, we're seeing more and more situations where it doesn't seem so fair,
It doesn't seem so fair
So I
against
think we're going to do that
defendants.
Luigi
Okay.
thing tomorrow, right? Isn't that the plan? We'll do the Luigi thing tomorrow?
Yeah. Were we doing
Tomorrow's
Luigi tomorrow or
Wednesday?
Friday? I thought we were Friday or
Yeah. I
tomorrow.
think we're going to do the comments
I've
show
lost
on
count.
Friday.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah, I think
that's
we're going
right.
to do the
We're doing
comments.
Louis.
We are going to do another
Doing that's
comments
right.
show,
Right.
which is a Good Friday fare, especially heading into the holiday weekend. I want to mention I just put
We
up
are
a
going. We are
poll.
going live on Luigi tomorrow. Yes, we
Yeah,
are at
and I
6
just put up a
p.m.
Luigi poll. Again, you always think my polls are a little bit skewed or biased, but I don't know. Here's what the poll is. And is Luigi Mangione, and then two choices, more hero than accused killer, or more accused killer than hero? And at this
Interesting poll.
point,
Interesting
yes,
poll.
and at this point, we have 68% more accused killer than hero. So, and the reason for that is obvious. We've heard so much out there about this guy being justified in what he did, that we all have these horror stories from healthcare providers, and that something had to give, and this guy's a crusader. I think that's sick. And it's the more I hear about it, and I hear about it, there's some news outlets that are throwing that out there, not as a guest's position, but they're tagging along with that position, and I think that's outrageous.
Well, we'll talk about it tomorrow night, but I'm telling you, as a trial lawyer, that you have to seize upon that to try this case.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
discount that, and I think he'd be lucky to have you in his corner for that purpose. But that's very different than what the public perception seems to be. When I see somebody that seems to justify cold-blooded murder because, hey, I had trouble with my doctor, that's wrong. That.
But it goes to show you about the what's happening out there. Even soon-to-be president again, Trump weighed in on this, and maybe we'll play that clip tomorrow.
Oh, thanks. Let me look for that. Let me
Yeah.
find that.
No, because
Thanks
it
for the
was
homework
interesting.
assignment.
It was
Okay.
interesting. Well, I won't go through today.
Got it.
Michael Bryan and I had our Justice Serve TV had our Christmas party last night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in New York City. Actually, we were trying to trade off some things that had to be traded off on terms of items, and Michael Bryan forgot my mug, but that's another story.
And the notepad. They're both sitting here. But and this is important for the folks to know going down the road. We're gonna, we're ramping up our technology here for our coverage with, what is it again? The Starlink, right?
Starlink. We have it's not just a Starlink. We have a mini Starlink. Okay, now tomorrow I'll have it up here.
It's a little teeny Starlink.
No, it's actually this big. I have to get a bag for it. It's now charged, but we have a mini Starlink that we're going to be taking with us, so that when Michael Bryan is on the road, because for some reason I'm in the studio a lot, or these.
Well, you're the important piece of the process here. I go out there, and whatever happens, happens. But my point in saying that we have that is this: we'll have a tech meeting soon, where we can go over that in the same room, other issues that we need to be doing hands-on in the same room, and I will then bring the mug as promised in the notepads.
And we also are looking for somebody who could help us out, because when we're busy practicing law during the day, talking to all of you at nighttime, following cases, we do need somebody, because we don't know how to do it. And if you, our viewers, can set us on a course, we always say a kid, but it's
that's what we always say. We need a kid. Well, all we're looking for is somebody to
cut our clips into
take this kind of
social media.
Long form thing and just pull a chunk here. Now, of course, this assumes there's something worth pulling, but I'll go past that. Pull little chunks and then throw them up there on the various social media outlets to help cross promote. Because we just, I'll be honest, I could do it if I had the time. It's not really rocket science. It just takes time, and unfortunately, I don't have that time. So if we just
we have over 50,000 viewing hours right now. I assume we can take a lot of those chunks and put them on, because we have a lot of shows, including we did what, 3 shows with Ty, 3 segments.
At least, I think he was one of the first. He did our show one of the first, and that was man, that was way back. I can't. It had to
when
be
we were just
February,
starting
perhaps.
out. Yeah, when we were just starting out, but we weren't really. We had just we're wetting our little tipsy toes, and then starting in September, we actually decided to do this on a very serious basis for all of you. And of course, we thank you for joining us here on Justice Served TV. So, Michael Bryant, I think you have something to say.
Yes, so we'll do something tomorrow night. It's going to be Luigi, we believe, so get ready to weigh in on that. In the meantime, I'm Michael Bryant. Try to do the right thing.
And I'm Linda Kenny Bodden, and together we are Justice Served TV. And if you like us, please subscribe, like, share, and hit that notify button. We'll see you tomorrow night.